Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer for Deloitte's Government and Public Services with Deloitte. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Fredy Diaz, Deputy Chief Data Officer for the United States Department of Agriculture. Fredy, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Fredy, maybe we start off the conversation with you sharing a little bit about your background with the audience. And I know you've had a fascinating journey in your career, so maybe share a little bit about your background and how you got to the role of the Deputy CDO here.
Sure. Thanks for the question. I have to say first and foremost, I had a lot of great folks, mentors, sponsors along the way, because my career path is definitely non-traditional, and it was not planned out. So at first, I was in the Marine Corps. I served in the Marine Corps in aviation logistics, and that's actually where I fell in love with data analytics. That's where I saw the power of being able to do analysis and tie it to the mission and how it can really help. And I really wanted more of that. So when I finished my time in the Marine Corps, I did 9 years. I worked for the Department of Defense in acquisition logistics and really honed that skill. And then from there, went to the Department of Labor, where I became the real and personal property manager. That's where I learned and fell in love with GIS as a capability and really the drive down costs through inefficiencies and how we did business, and really just find better ways of working. Prior to coming to USDA, I entered my tour at the USPS Office of the Inspector General as their Director of Data Analytics. That I think was also a very fascinating gig because that's where we used data analytics to perform our oversight of the Postal Service, really find those bad apples that needed further investigation or find programs that were not fully aligned. So that really what brought me here. And like I said, every one of those positions had a special place in my heart. And I feel like I draw on those experiences here at USDA, whether my time even in the Marine Corps all the way up to my last gig. I feel like that depth and breadth of experience really helped me for my role today as Deputy CDO.
Well, what a fantastic journey. Thanks for sharing that, Fredy. And tell us a little bit about where the role of the CDO, and specifically for you as a Deputy CDO, where do you fit into the organizational structure at USDA? Because every CDO I talk to every day seems like has a different story on where they fit in operationally.
Sure, absolutely. So in our organization, my boss, the Chief Data and AI Officer, reports in the office of the CIO, and this is something that we utilize to our advantage because we have some interesting technology benefits and interesting technology capabilities that we leverage. For me specifically as a deputy, I feel like I have a very fun and exciting role because I'm part of our USDA Chief Data Officer Council, which is made up of the CDO, myself, and our missionary assistant chief data officers. We have 8 of them. But also as a senior advisor to Mr. Chris Alvarez, our CDO, I'm able to ensure that we, kind of provide different perspectives of what the mission areas are saying, and also advise him on potential course of action. But I think also my day to day is really just on building relationships and trust across the organization. As large as USDA, we value trust with different organizations, and that's how we're able to leverage different programs. We're able to leverage different initiatives by just doing diplomacy over coffee kind of thing, and being able to talk and be able to share different strategies together, different pain points. So I'm able to kind of permeate across the organization in different groups to ensure that maybe a problem that hasn't resonated yet or hasn't risen to the level of the CDO can be addressed at my level or even below through building those relationships and really solidifying that trust.
And I can just hear that passion in your voice that you're so focused on kind of building up that data culture and bringing around leaders from different mission areas together. So I want to talk more about how you are building this data culture further. But first, I know you mentioned Chief Data and AI Officer. And I guess, is that a more recent change coming through with the executive order in your title?
It is. So our chief data officer, Chris Alvarez, serves as the chief AI officer as well. We're still having conversations within USDA about where the AI governance functions live and exist. But I think the recognition that data and AI at least at USDA, have a fit hand in glove. So really, it's about ensuring that we have AI ready data, ensuring that we have processes in place for AI that could have some alignment with our IT functions, but may also have a lot more resonance with what we're doing currently in the data space. So with Chris Alvarez as the Chief Data and AI Officer, we're having conversations about now what do we need to do special on top of our normal data governance that we have in order to embrace AI.
Yeah, and that continues to be an interesting topic as I talk to other CDOs in the federal space is like, again, different operational models on, how they're addressing not only like data and AI strategies, separate data or AI strategies or combined data AI strategies, as well as what you mentioned earlier, right, around governance, having data and AI governance, separate boards, similar boards. So we're going to be following your journey to see how USDA is tackling that. But first, maybe we talk a little bit about your core data strategy. Fredy, I know when you and I were having our prep call earlier, you talked about 5 strategic areas, I believe, in your data strategy. Would you want to expand that here for the audience today, please?
Of course. So what I find really interesting is that this is not our first data strategy. This is actually our second one. So we built on a lot of the successes of that process and the successes of what went into that strategy to begin with. But our 5 strategic goals, are focusing on strengthening our data governance and leadership. Our second goal is really on the workforce, recruiting, retaining, upskilling our workforce. Our third one is one that some agencies have, some don't, depending on their role, within their federal agency, which is focusing on maturing their enterprise data platform. We own our data platform, and we want to find ways to expand that and make that more mature, as the agency gets more mature itself. We also have an explicit goal on data sharing. This is one we want to continue enabling and really expand data sharing within USDA and also external with other federal agencies and with the public. And the last one is really investing in improved analytics processes, techniques, and ensuring that we're baking in ethics into what we do from an analytics standpoint.
Uh, Freddie, thanks for sharing those, and I love what you had shared earlier when you talked about this data strategy is not just a product out of the CDO office, but you have referenced this as everyone's strategy in USDA, right? And I love that sentiment that this is not just a CDO data strategy, but it is really meant to align with the mission outcomes of USDA. It has got to be a journey, as you created this data strategy and got adoption across the agency, right? Would you want to opine a little bit upon the challenges that you faced while developing this strategy and typically getting buy-in from the stakeholders, right? Because I've talked to other CDOs and agencies, and typically, like creating the data strategy is one piece, and getting stakeholder alignment and buy-in is a whole different piece. So, how was your journey like?
Absolutely. This is one where when I first came to USDA about 18 months ago, the CDO tasked me with developing a plan to refresh our data strategy. But one thing he made clear to me and to the team was that it could not just be the CDO strategy. This needed to be a strategy that permeates across the department. So from the very beginning, our plan was how do people, and I mentioned we already had an existing strategy. So understanding what people knew about the current strategy, what people knew about our current efforts, so we can see maybe where it's already been executed well, where there might be some communication gaps. Um, and that would be really good data points for us to kind of determine what we do next. We spent a lot of time from listening sessions, surveys, draft revisions, getting a pretty good representative group of folks across the department to help us write the strategy. What we wanted to ensure was that it was not a shock when it went through the clearance process or when it finally came out. And that took a lot of effort. And we felt that that effort was well worth it because when the strategy came out, it was not a shock to people. And it was something that I think a lot of folks were proud of that had data in their title, but also folks that were in the performance space and the IT space across different groups. And I feel like that showed me and showed the CDO and others that our work initially made that a success to make sure it was not viewed as just a strategy from the department. It wasn't just a paper exercise, that we all contributed to this and we all had a piece of it.
Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing all of your experience and insights. And many congratulations on all of your success so far, and best wishes for the year to come.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me.